Righty. Well, it looks like we have about 12 people in here. For those of you who don't have your cameras on, if you're able to turn them on, that would be amazing. And then we can kind of build some community with each other. But let's get started. Thank you all for joining. This is June's AOT Learning Network web chat for peer support specialists. And since some of you might be new to our offerings, I want to briefly introduce the AOT Learning Network and tax the AOT implementation team, and then we'll get into who's in the room today. I'm Brooke. I am AOT implementation manager on the team. If this is your first time joining one of our chats, welcome. The AOT Learning Network, which we call the AOTLN, is about a 3,000 strong virtual learning network made up of a variety of collaborators nationwide dedicated to the advancement of and education about assisted outpatient treatment for people with SMI. So we share resources, we share other AOT related content, and then the network also holds webinars on an approximate every other month basis, as well as collaborator specific web chats like this one. If you were forwarded the notice for this meeting and you don't receive our AOT Learning Network bulletins, we would definitely encourage you to join for more offerings like this one. I'm going to drop the link to sign up for the network in the chat a little later on. But I just wanted to say that we're going to get to introductions, but I wanted to note for everybody that this web chat is open to all, including peers who don't currently work in AOT programs, but are interested in learning more and building community. So I am going to go ahead and hand it off to Amy to introduce herself, and then we'll do the rest of the TAC team who's on, and then we'll go to the group. Go ahead, Amy.
Hi, my name is Amy Lukes. I'm a social worker by training. I've been with TAC for 7 years now, working on AOT implementation. And Sarah will not be able to join us. She's the attorney on our team. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Amy. Jared?
Hi, everybody. My name's Jared. I am our senior AOT advisor. I work on our training resources, our program review tool. And previously, I worked in inpatient state psychiatric hospital, and I worked very closely with our peer there. We did a lot of groups together and some events and programming. So it's great to be with you all. It reminds me of that work in my life.
Thank you, Jared. Shanti?
Hi, everyone. I'm Shanti. I'm the research advisor on the team, and thank you all for joining today.
Thank you, Shanti. So I'm going to go in order of how I see you on my screen. And for those of you, let's see, that I'm not seeing, if you are able to turn your camera on, that would be awesome. So for introductions, please just share your name, your location, your role, and why you joined today. If you are not a peer, but you joined us anyways, totally okay. Just share why you joined today. And I'm going to put that in the chat as well. The first person I'm seeing is Brian.
Hello, everyone. This is my first time joining. My name is Brian. I'm in Etowah County, Alabama. I'm a peer support specialist. I've been a peer support specialist for 7 years in a variety of situations, but I just joined an AOT role in May. And when I heard about this call, I was really excited. I think peer support is wonderful and my purpose, but I've never been in AOT before, so I was interested to meet, network, and to learn a specific skill set for this environment.
Amazing. Thanks for joining, Brian, and congratulations. That's Judge Hassel in Etowah
Judge
County?
Hassel and Jason Doyle.
Okay, amazing. That's a good spot to be in. So welcome. Next on my screen is LaDonna.
Hi, LaDonna Burchett. I'm an MHPS in Howard County in Big Spring, Texas. And my supervisor is the one that got me in touch. I have no idea. I've never been to one of these, so I'm new. So that's it.
Brooke, you're muted.
Oh no, I'm good.
I was muted. Sorry, y'all. Thank you so much for joining, LaDonna. Michael, you're next on my screen.
It's like,
Michael, I think you're muted for me at least. Are you able to introduce yourself? We'll come back to you. Nicholas?
Hello, my name, location, role, and why I joined today. My name is Nick Garrels. I am in Grass Valley, California with Turning Point Community Programs. My role is a certified Medi-Cal peer support specialist, and I'm here. I was here when this thing didn't it just launch not too long ago? And yeah, we have quite a few of our folks are involved in AOT. I think it's a really cool program, and I like to be a part of and learn more about it. So that's why I'm here. Glad to be a part of.
Thank you so much, Nicholas. And yeah, this is our second chat specifically for peers. And thanks for coming to the first one, Nicholas. We've had these collaborator specific web chats for other groups for a while, and we realized that we were really missing one for peers. So next on my screen is Yvette Sardina.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, Yvette Sardina. I'm in Spring, Texas. I'm a parent, and I just wanted to see if I can pick up anything. Just learning.
Sounds good. Glad to have you with us. And don't crash your car.
I'm not.
Okay. Michael, go ahead. Oh, I still can't hear you, Michael, but I can see you're off mute. We'll come back to you again. Sorry, I know technology can really be plaguing, but you can also put your introduction in the chat if you're able. Cecilia.
Hi, I'm Cecilia, and I am in Chicago, Illinois. I am peer support for the clinical support team and also AOT here. It's a newer kind of role for the clinical support team. NAMI offers, recovery support, but this is just different. And I joined so that I could learn and learn from you guys, people who are experienced. I'm kind of new to the role. Just learn and share. Yeah.
Awesome. Welcome, Cecilia. Maria, I see you put your introduction in the chat. Welcome. Feel free to add anything if you want, or if you want to introduce yourself verbally. You don't have to, totally up to you.
Oh no, thank you. This is my first time. I received an invite and I try to go to all the meetings that I get invited to. I usually think there's some reason for it, so I'm still figuring that part out.
Sounds good. Thank you for joining us. Next on my screen is Ebony.
How you doing? Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
All right, great. So I'm Ebony Flint. My background is as a certified peer specialist and trainer for 10 plus years in Massachusetts. I'm also a policy analyst and researcher for Human Services Research Institute. I've supported as a peer folks in my community on AOT and have some experience, but also with HSRI, we're doing some participatory research. And I just want to make sure that I'm bringing in the perspective of different folks with the actual lived experience of this process. And this is my first time being here. So thank you.
Amazing. Welcome. Thank you for joining. Right. Looks like Marjorie is next. I can't hear you, Mar. Oh, there you go. Sorry. Go ahead.
With a volunteer with NAMI Central Texas Advocacy and Peer Policy. I am familiar with the diversion program in Austin and wanted to see what others were doing with their diversion program to bring possible expansion to the Austin program. I think it's lacking in a few things. Basically, the diversion program in Austin is make sure you make appointments with your doctor and take your meds. And I just don't understand that because that's like telling a 600-pound person who wants to lose weight, go home, stop eating chocolate, and weigh yourself once a month. And we all know that probably not a good outcome. So I want to see what other examples are, peer support, groups, social worker, involvement once a week or anything like that to share with the folks in Austin.
Thank you, Marjorie. That makes a lot of sense. And I think, to your point, the population that AOT serves requires a lot of outreach and assertive engagement, and it's important to help engage people in treatment rather than relying on them to come to you. So I think that's a really good use of peers in AOT. So I'm glad you bring that up. Catherine Gray.
Good afternoon. I'm Catherine Gray. I'm from Anne Arundel County, Maryland, and our state is doing our planning year for AOT. AOT is new to Maryland, so I'm trying to learn as much as I can from everybody.
Awesome. Welcome, Catherine. Okay, I think unless I have missed anyone, let's see here. Next on my screen is Al.
Hey, nice to meet everybody. I'm an AOT case manager. I'm currently in Michigan. We work out of Troy, Michigan, and I work for Oakland Community Health Network. This is probably maybe my second or third time joining. I try to join as much as I can. If I'm available, then I'll be here. But I'm pretty much new to the AOT world as well. I just started being a case manager maybe about 5 months ago, and I think my supervisor sent me the thing to get involved with this. So I'm just doing what I'm told, but also learning at the same time.
Awesome. Well, welcome. Thanks for joining, Al. So it looks like there's one person who is here who is camera off. And I'm so sorry if I mispronounced your name. Is it Yasa?
Hi, good morning.
Hi.
My name is Isa Pablo.
Sorry about that, Isa.
It's okay. I'm from Guam, and I'm the peer specialist for our team. This is Guam's first AOT program for our Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center. So I'm really just trying to understand more of what my role looks like, my duties, and just to learn anything I can to bring back. It's 5 a.m. right now, so forgive me for not wanting to turn my camera on.
No, gold star to you for attending at 5 a.m. Um, no worries at all. Thank you for joining, Lisa.
Of course, thank you.
All right. Well, I think that was everyone. If I missed you, please say the word. Okay. Well, I feel like we have kind of a variety of expertise in the room. I know a lot of you are somewhat new to you're maybe be working as a peer in AOT or working in AOT in general, but you've been working as a peer before that. Um, so the purpose of these chats are really to just get to know each other and talk about what you want to talk about. And so we have some suggested discussion topics, and I think based on what I'm hearing from you all, it might be useful to just go through some of the expected functions of peers in AOT and what it is that we've seen peers do working in programs from our experience, but I also want to just open up the floor if anyone has any items for discussion or something they'd like to ask of their colleagues on the call. Brian, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I'm a little insecure in saying this because when I was interviewing for this role, I've been doing peer support for a while, but never in AOT. And like and I could be wrong completely, but my perception of peer support is that it's a voluntary process and that people choose to be involved. But with this, I asked the people who are already here, how would they navigate that difference between like um that civil process into AOT and my component, which I don't feel comfortable. I mean, maybe I shouldn't make a generality. I should just say in me as an individual, my experience of peer support is that it be voluntary, a person's choice, such that it's effective. And so it's been really good here navigating that role, but I'm still trying to. I'm only been in a month, so I'm still trying to figure out exactly how to see it. That'd be my biggest question, and I don't want to derail the conversation. I just want to. You asked if there were any concerns.
No, that is really relevant. So I think that and let me know if I'm not understanding your question correctly, but because AOT is providing outpatient treatment under a civil court order, it's not voluntary, it's an involuntary process. And how do you kind of navigate that and provide support to participants in the program with that being the case? Is that correct?
Yes, it is. I've been doing well with it, but I mean, the way we pragmatize it, like for my own peace and well-being and like interpretation of peer support, is like making my piece voluntary within that court order. But I mean, I'm interested to see what other people's perspective on that be, or skills, strategies.
Definitely. And I think you know, the other piece of that is that the way we see the court order functioning is it both works on the participants in the program and the the provider and the deliverer of the treatment services. So if you're asking a participant to participate in treatment, you're also asking for that treatment and supports be delivered in a good kind of timely way. And so I think if you're thinking about your role in the voluntary nature of that, it would depend community by community, but there is this kind of notion that the court order is also holding provider staff accountable for providing the services that people need. So it's definitely kind of layered in that way. I would be curious about Nicholas, your thoughts on this, on how you kind of explain the benefits of court mandated treatment to people who are skeptical, or how you're framing your support, given that AOT is involuntary. Sorry to call you out, Nicholas.
Well, no, I mean, is it involuntary? I mean, at the end of the day, they have the choice to engage in the AOT or just face the time or consequence for whatever got them to court to begin with. So, and this is from, we have another peer who was in the AOT process for 3 years, and I, between going to court and watching what goes on and listening to him, it's like the main thing is, yeah, it's a civil court. None of the, ain't nobody got a gun in there, and no matter what, it's if you show up to court, you're not going to jail. So it's like you're going there, and you might want to get it on a T-shirt. Like they will work with you, whatever. If you're having a challenge meeting some part of your treatment plan, the court is the place to go and tell them that. It's a very different. Anybody only has to go in there once to realize this is a very different scenario than any other time that you've been in court. Everyone's happy to be there. They're talking, everyone's introducing each other, and it's just a very different atmosphere. And even if you can't do certain things, it's the place to go to explain that. And then it also gives you a way to advocate outside of whoever the court is mandating to give you that treatment. Because like you said, Brooke, it's on us to provide the services that they're doing. And so you could even, it gives you a platform to really, really be heard and for your voice and choice to be maintained within your own treatment plan. And you get to go in sometimes every other week to make sure that everybody is on pace with what they're doing, and no one gets penalized for the AOT participant. They don't get penalized for not meeting a certain thing if they can't do it. We talk about what challenges, how we can work with that, and how we can get where everybody wants to go. So yeah, I really like it. It just, everybody seems to have a positive experience. Just even having that experience in a courtroom, I think, is helpful. I hope I answered the question.
No, that was really helpful, Nicholas. Maria, you've got your hand raised.
Yeah, I like what Nicholas had just said. I think that's a big portion of it. And then I also come from the angle that the court actually holds the agencies accountable, and that we have to provide these services to you and making sure that you get what you need. And so when coming from that angle, it helps people really see that it's a partnership instead of a punitive thing, because we really focus on the fact that it's not punitive, that we're here to help the person. And that I think helps bridge that, and build the rapport and trust, because everybody's scared to go to court, especially it's in district. Like that's the big court, right? And then, so that's really the angle that we try to come from, is that, there's a lot of benefits to being in AOT. Like we have this housing stuff, and this, we make sure you have resources and all these sort of things. But I just really hone in on the fact that the courts are also holding us accountable for providing those services to the patient.
Definitely. Thank you, Maria. I really like what you said about, it's giving the person kind of the power to advocate for themselves and express their needs and challenges. And then it's up to the provider to help them work through those challenges so that they can engage in treatment. I think about someone missing appointments, or maybe it's a transportation issue. And I think as peers and individuals with lived experience, if you can establish that rapport, you could get to the root of what is the barrier here. So that's really powerful. Ebony.
I just wanted to share another side of that, even though I've had similar experiences as those who you all have shared, which is great. I've also, in Massachusetts, especially in certain communities that isn't the experience that they have or the access that they have. And it's very traumatizing and re-traumatizing to be forced or in some of their language given a false option and not having their dignity of risk as others do. And so in my experience, it's as a peer that I get to help them make meaning, tap into their inner wisdom, and give them maybe more choices than they feel they have in their treatment plan. And that's how I maintain my peerness in that situation. Thank you.
Definitely. That makes a lot of sense. And I think, an important thing you speak on, Ebony, is that a lot of people who, um, at least obviously statute varies state by state, but the level of care and support and treatment that people need when they are in AOT is generally pretty high. And they may have had criminal legal involvement in the past. They may have had traumatic experiences, whether that's being hospitalized in an inpatient setting, maybe put in restraints, maybe they have been incarcerated. And so I think the that really gets at how can you support someone and support their needs in the most trauma informed way. Oh, bye, Amy. She says tornado warning. Hope everything's okay. But how can you provide that support and not re-traumatize someone? And I know that different AOT programs operate differently, but we've at least seen in some cases if a participant does not benefit from seeing the judge, if they don't benefit from that black robe effect. And if them going and having a check-in with the judge appears to be doing more harm to their recovery path than help, then maybe it's worth considering making adjustments for them. Maybe they meet more with their case manager, their peer in the community, and they're not brought into court. You're really trying to find for each individual person what works, and not everything is going to work for everyone. And you're trying to figure out, okay, what can I do to engage this person? And I've seen that doing this, they pull back a little bit, probably because of past experiences. So I think that's a really, really good point. And as peers, you're advocating for the participant, and you're also kind of sussing out what is going to be effective for them individually, which I think can sometimes be a little challenging, but you just have to try different things. Enough from me. Different thoughts on this topic. Anyone on how to how to engage with participants in the with it in mind that they are being court ordered to treatment? Go ahead, Brian.
Well, I just want to say I appreciate. I hope I'm not derailing at all,
No.
and I'm very much so a talker, and it's my first time in this group. So I'm also a trainer for a couple of certifications. So we have a thing saying take space, make space. So if I need to make space for others, please let me know. But I would just say that um, the Judge Hassel and the team here at Probate Court before I came were so intentional about provide like being low barrier and providing so much support and care in so many like wonderful ways that I haven't seen in other environments. And I think they're doing a good job here before I came. It's just that like as far as I was trained, Alabama uses the Appalachian Consulting Group, the Georgia model, and I was just thinking like as far as I was taught at least, like within the ethics of the peer support discipline, it's that it is by definition of voluntary service. And so it's not that I mean, of course, traditionally speaking, like judicial interaction can cause harm, but the people here they don't have a I don't. It's they take so many intentional steps not to. I guess it's just my own like ethical quandary, like how to navigate that boundary. I think I'm doing really well. I offer and engage everyone because my offices are actually at the court, and so I offer and engage everyone who comes to the program. But I also do like hold that voluntary space. So I was curious primarily because I told the people here that I wasn't going to take the position unless this component remained uh voluntary. But I was curious to like other people's thoughts ethically and how other people pragmatized it. But I hope that clarifies a little bit about my question.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And I think what I'm hearing is, you can't force anyone to engage with you. And where's the line between like assertive outreach and keep encouraging them and still leaving it in their hands to kind of use you when they need you. And I think that's a hard line to, especially with AOT participants who may likely have ended up in an AOT program because they have a history of not engaging with treatment services. Um, so yeah, thoughts on that? Maria, I see you went off mute.
I just want to say that nobody is forced to do this. So it's a voluntary, involuntary situation. And it's kind of a hard concept for people to really get their brain around. And so I think that the more practice and the more used to it you get, that the more you'll understand that it's really about the black robe effect, because most people, when told to do certain things by a judge, would do it. Outside of that, would probably kind of just poo-poo it or put it to the side. But when there's authority saying, hey, you need to take your meds, most people will say, okay, judge, I'll take my meds. And that's the whole basis for the whole system, I feel like. And with that understanding, outside of this, they would probably isolate or just, kind of blow it off in a sense. But if what we're, like Brooke was saying, like we get a little more assertive and then we can help people on yet to get to the other side of whatever episode they're having and have long-term recovery or, have less episodes of going to the jail or going to the hospital or something like that, right? And so the more times we have those episodes of, stability in a sense, then we can kind of interject and say, hey, you know what, you were taking your meds, you were doing really good. So, kind of feed off of that idea of like, the judge said it was a good idea. Maybe we should just keep doing that. And I think that, having that kind of little dialogue going on with people, with, nobody's like gonna go and put cuffs on you because you didn't do what you're supposed to do in AOT court. You know what I'm saying? So that's really what we talk about in our area, that in fact I didn't even know it was mandatory, until I went to the conference. I'm like, oh yeah, really, it is, a mandated thing. But the reality is that it's only mandated because they want it. If that makes sense.
Definitely. And I think, programs vary state by state, but at least as kind of Treatment Advocacy Center sees AOT practice, it doesn't really, while you have tools in your tool belt to get someone to engage, you could never like forcibly administer medication in the community. If someone does not adhere to their treatment plan, there's not really consequences for that unless they decompensate to the point of needing to be hospitalized because they're really sick. And so if, for example, someone misses appointments, if they're just, you have maybe some strategies for re-engaging them, but ultimately it is possible, and we've seen this, that participants will just disappear and you will not be able to locate them. And you'll do everything you can to find them in the community and re-engage them, but you may not be able to. And I think it's more a matter of how do we use like our time and resources to try as hard as we can to get someone re-engaged, but ultimately, yeah.
Yeah, I want to add to what Brooke said that, with these programs, because there is a civil court order as part of it, we want to honor that there's a court order so that there is something mandatory, something involuntary about the nature of it, but each participant has varying levels of how voluntary they might feel towards the program, right? A lot of folks might have a court order, but they say, I was told about this program and it sounds like it might be a good idea. I'm going to try it out. Whereas others might feel like I didn't want to be here at the start, right? That each person's going to have their own unique response to being in an AOT program, to having this court order. And that's where you come in as a peer. You can be that person that helps them find their way through that program, that helps them find ways of exercising choice, of saying, all right, you're in this. So like when I worked in the hospital, I was a chaplain in the hospital. So I didn't sit on anybody's team. So a lot of folks were there involuntarily, and I didn't represent their team. I didn't represent the hospital. I tried to be like, I'm here to represent you and your needs. And that I think is something that what a peer can do in this space is say, here we are. You're on this order. You're in this program. Now, like, how can we make this work for you? And what are some things that are important to you? What's going to make this, more enjoyable? What would make this worthwhile for you? And that's where you as a peer can really come alongside somebody and help them get the most out of this program.
Thank you, Jared. And I just wanted to, sorry, I lost where I was. I saw your comments in the chat, Ebony. I'm not sure about, at least to my understanding, I know Massachusetts was trying to do like an AOT pilot. I think that was the VOTE program, but that Massachusetts remains a holdout on the law. So the state doesn't have a law currently to practice AOT as we recommend it. And I'm not sure about New York, but we would definitely never recommend forcing medication or surveilling individuals. I don't know if others can speak to that. At least my understanding is that medication can only be administered in an inpatient setting when someone
You need
meets the
fire on that.
dangerousness
Fire on that black
standard.
fire.
But I hate to hear that that could be happening. I think that completely throws any trust that is established to the wind. And I don't know how you make kind of prolonged progress and sustained recovery when there's not relationships and trust.
Yeah, I
Well,
had
this
a
is
quick
great to
question.
hear.
I'm
This
sorry,
is
go
a,
ahead,
oh,
Ebony.
sorry. I was just
Oh,
going
you
to
were
say
good.
that this is great to hear. And I love that I'm here to hear this other side of it. In Massachusetts, you're right about those laws, but those experiences are still able to happen. And in New York with the Kendra's law and stuff, that's actually where I'm doing the participatory research. So what I'm sharing with you are the direct experiences from participants who live in New York throughout the state. Their experiences on
Anthony, thank you for
AOT order.
going.
And so I would
We
love to
actually
I love that I'm
put
hearing
that.
more positive things than negative things. So thank you.
Yeah, I was gonna say too, Ebony, that I know I've also heard this feedback about the kind of blood tests and surveillance in New York, but if you similar, because I'm surprised to hear that about Massachusetts, given that they don't have statutory authority to be doing AOT right now. If you would want us to check with our attorney and get back to you about New York and anything like that, I'll put our email in the chat and please feel free to reach out.
Bueno,
And I wanted to come back
fuimos hasta
to
allá y ella
Marjorie's question.
equivocó de día.
Marjorie, you're
Oh,
asking what types of services are provided within
una hora
AOT.
de día.
So that is really going to be program specific and based on the resources that the program has. But I would
Pero
say
sí
that
estás haciendo.
case management,
¿Qué has hecho? Bueno.
medication management,
Oh, ok, pues yo me puedo llevar
a
eso en
lot
esta
of
tarde
programs
entonces.
have peers and a lot don't have peers. Some programs don't make use of peers at all. Some rely heavily on peers. It kind of depends. And then also therapy, and there would also be appointments with between participants and psychiatrists. So really mental health treatment. And I know in some places being an AOT can help participants get connected to other services like housing, or maybe medical services that are not related to mental health, because they're being kind of prioritized in the spot that they're in. But it definitely is kind of there's not one standard for what all is provided. I would say at a minimum, case management and medication management and therapy.
Thank you for that. I mean,
Yeah.
I've thought that the AOT program should be, should adopt some practices from Alcohol Anonymous, from AA, which has been successful for years, which are meetings, required meetings, and a sponsor who calls, I think, the other person once a week or once a day, and really, somebody who's been successful at completing their AOT and, can give the other person support. So I don't see that. I don't know if there is any AOT program modeled like that. But even utilizing the 12 steps, which are utilized in AA and other and across the board, I see a lot of people saying, oh, like AA, I mean, they're not alcoholics, but they still use the steps to just enhance their own lives. And so I just think that something like that would be helpful in the AOT program because, like I said, I haven't seen that.
Yeah, thank you, Marjorie. I saw Nicholas's hand first and then Brian.
Nick's okay. It just said Nicholas on this thing. Yeah, I'd like to address that, Marjorie. So my understanding, and I've used 12-step programs well, is the entire peer movement is that thing you just described. So it's not particular in AOT, but anyone who is a peer, the idea is that somebody with lived experience in not only mental health challenges and substance use challenges and lived experience in recovery has more to, or has, quite a bit to offer, as opposed to, doctor, therapist, caseworker, because, whereas they will know what's going on with us and they may be able to understand. It's only a peer, or they will sympathize and they will know, but only a peer would be able to understand and empathize because we've been through it before. So yeah, so I sort of see the whole peer movement as that thing that you're talking about, where it's just one person who's been through it just showing you, hey, this is what I did. As far as the steps are concerned, each person has to work those on their own, and no one can force somebody else to do those. So I wish I could. I wish I could force people through the 12 steps so they could have the same experience I had. However, that's not how life works. But I appreciate your question.
Thanks, Nick. Brian?
Oh yeah, I'm just used to Marjorie's question, and I want to get back say what Ebony said, respond to what Ebony said earlier. But I'm just used to using buzzwords like peer support specialist. But what that means to me, it means everybody in Alabama who uses that term to describe their discipline means they suffered a serious challenge in mental health, substance use, or what have you, and we were able to find, I mean, through lots of trial and tribulation, find meaning there and get to a point where we wanted to support others going through that similar experiences. When I meet the people in this program, I say, I can't say that I've walked a mile in your shoes, because no one can. But I've been to some places, I've had some experiences, and I made my way out again. And if there's hope for people like me, there's definitely hope for you. And I'm in, and so that when I say peer support specialist, I realize that's jargony now because not everybody really knows. But what I was going to say to Ebony is that despite my ethical quandaries, we've had a lot of success stories. Even since I just started, I have had the lived experience of like multiple mental health setbacks, and every time I try to gain agency in my life multiple, and that looks like just crashing and burning over and over again. And then a lot of people who come into the program are struggling with independence and they've had a setback. And so I get to share that lived experience of my mental health struggles and how they impacted my life and inspire hope and like genuine recovery. So it's really cool. I still have ethical things that I wrestle with, but like we're seeing a lot of engagement and a lot of growth and a lot of willingness.
Thank you, Brian. I think you really speak to, the value that peers bring. I think a lot of a lot of folks in AOT may be, if this isn't their kind of first go round being in the system or being hospitalized, maybe used to people telling them what to do and not necessarily walking beside them as they try to do those things. And so I think that just being an example of what life could be like is so powerful. And I know that Jared put it in the chat, but some programs do maintain contact with people who graduate and are kind of living well with serious mental illness after AOT. And not only is that kind of a good thing to do so that you can continue to track successes and outcomes of what's working and what worked for someone, but also you could I think Nicholas, you said that one of your AOT graduates went on to become a peer. And so just especially someone who has been through the program, I think we find that there are a lot more peers um, who have experience with substance use disorders than severe mental illness. I don't want to generalize, but sometimes it's um, more of that, or perhaps someone has experience living with co-occurring conditions. And so I know we've had conversations before where peers have been somewhat new to the world of serious mental illness and the different kinds of challenges that people can face. And so I think it's all the more important that there's relatability and connection and trust, in that it a lot of times I think people may not engage with treatment because they're just feeling incredibly isolated. So, other questions, comments? Well, oh, go ahead, Brian.
Oh, well, no, Brooke, if I'm taking up too much space, like I have a habit of doing that. So I can make space for others or make space for whatever the next step is in this collaboration of people here. But I I'm glad you said that because like I want to just hold up like for the fact that the trauma of like being involved in a variety of systems that may cause harm, whatever systems they may be, and then like Ebony said, there might be a lot of systemic engagement previous to their involvement in AOT, and I know and that I haven't just started in AOT, but every program I've worked in. I'm trying to build mutuality and establish connection and share my lived experience. But I mean, there's that I think Jared alluded to like there's multiple levels of like how willing a person is to engage with any person they see as an agent of the system. And so I might be the most mutual, I'm not the most, but might be incredibly mutual and supportive, and I have all these shared lived experiences that I can attest to, and I'm willing to self-disclose. That's literally my role. But like some people may still see me as an agent of a system, and based on their lived experience and trauma story with shared systems, that's an uphill battle. But hey, I've been in this field for 7 years and like duly trained, certified on 4 years. So if I didn't want to fight that uphill movement, I probably would have given up by now. So I love it. I'm just saying, like, we're actually building traction. So maybe I'm just taking up space. I'm gonna stop talking. I need to stop talking.
No, that is really important. And I think you bring up a good point in that when there is trauma there and like folks have consistently struggled with engaging in treatment for a variety of oftentimes very valid reasons, um, it is an uphill battle. And I know that I think the point there is to not give up on people and stop engaging because I think it can take months of being on an AOT order before you may develop any semblance of trust or believe that the people on the AOT team are trying to help you. And I know that can be frustrating when you're really trying to make a connection with someone and they just have a lot of suspicion, but they probably have that sort of past experiences. So don't give up on them. Um, Marjorie, I see your chat. So, AOT is implemented mostly at the local level, like individual counties are implementing, and then there are several states that have taken kind of the lead on implementation directed from the state level. The most kind of organized and longest running of that is Ebony mentioned New York, Kendra's Law. New York is the only state where AOT is mandated in every county, so every county has AOT. But for the rest of the United States, I would say implementation is somewhat sporadic. You have some states that have taken a lead role and they have multiple pilot sites in multiple counties. You have some states where there are lots of programs, but they're not really connected by any kind of oversight, like Ohio, for example, has over 30 AOT programs, but those are all governed like at the local county level. There isn't really involvement by the state. And then you have, for example, Georgia, where I live, the Department of Behavioral Health started a pilot project, and there are 5 sites. So unfortunately, there isn't really a link to view exactly what programs each state consist of, but we do maintain a program contact list of AOT programs that have voluntarily given us their contact information and agreed to share that. So Jared, perfect, you're way ahead of me. So you can click that and see a list of programs by state. I know it's hard when things are not consistent. you're all joining from different places and AOT is not implemented the same everywhere. And so I think that can be kind of confusing. But we find that it also is a good thing because certain communities have certain resources and certain communities don't. And so being able to rely on what you have and the relationships that already exist is definitely a strength.
And to add to what Brooke said, some state statutes might say an AOT program may have these services, but the state statute itself doesn't typically mandate a very, specific list of services. When you think about AOT, it's not a type of service. It's the mental health services that your community is already provided with a court order laid over the top of it. And so whatever your community mental health board, whatever your community mental health services are, like those services should be provided to this person. This person who is on an AOT order should have the additional, attention and support of that community, of those case managers, of the court, because they are in AOT. But it's not a specific like list of services per se.
Yeah, and I think just to add to that, there are lots of communities that were using outpatient commitment orders for a long time, but with no kind of structure or systematic implementation. So people would be court ordered to participate in treatment outpatient, and there would just be no follow-up. Nothing would come of that. So AOT is really trying to make something come of that and provide people support in the community so that, they can avoid the hospital, if at all possible, and reach and maintain, some stability if they can. Well, I'm gonna take a page out of Brian's book and say that I've talked enough, and we're also at the hour. Is there anything else anyone wants to share here, have questions about? Um, okay. Well, oh, go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I'm definitely not following my book. I actually, it's more of a pragmatic concern about some tax software that we got, and I think um, Jason, my colleague, had a question about it here in Etowah County, which I don't know if I can email yourself or Jared about it or what would be the best, but it's not a necessity to keep the whole group.
Oh, I should have your email address from the registration, Brian, so I'll follow up with you and we can get connected and go back and forth from there. And for everyone on this call, we're going to email the recording, and that will, if you didn't catch it in the chat, that will have our team email address, and you all are welcome to reach out, request to meet with us, ask us things, just brainstorm. We're here to help you. Well, have a lovely day, everyone. Can't believe it's almost the end of the week. Bye.